I'm Chloe, Adriana, and I work as a self-love and sexuality facilitator and coach. And 6 weeks ago, I was sexually assaulted. It was the first time that this ever happened to me in my life. And it was during a sports and acupuncture massage. So there was no context in which it was appropriate. Yeah, and I'm coming on here because I want to share about what happened to me. Because I think I know I have the capacity to speak about this, and I know that so many people don't. And in having this experience, I've been so much more deeply put into contact with how this is still so underground, the experience of assault, the experience of the results of assault and violence of a sexual nature on the body, on the psyche, on the soul. So when I left the massage, my brain was going into confusion, and I knew the part of me that I've been developing who's really strong, and my inner mother, let's say, my inner caretaker, was waving the alarm bell and saying, get on the phone now. I was at a foreign country in Sweden, in Stockholm, and I started calling everyone I knew who also does similar work as me, who I felt could hold space for me. And I finally got on to a friend who's a womb worker, and I said, I think I've just been sexually assaulted. She asked me what had happened and said, yes, you have been sexually assaulted. Where are you now? Are you safe? And I wasn't. I was in the city. I was trying to get a bus back to accommodation, and my body started going into shock and into freeze. And so she stayed on the phone with me. And throughout this story, what I want to share is how much support I received and called in and asked for, which is what I now understand so many people do not have when they have their experiences. And I got home, and the person that I was staying with wanted to take me immediately to the police station. And I said, no, I want to take care of myself first, because going to the police station was taking care of him and his legal consequences, which needed to happen. But first, the first thing that needed tending to was me and my experience of safety and my experience of coming back into my body. I wanted to get straight into the shower. And I got into the shower, and I teach so much about somatic processing and movement and deconditioning the body to make the impulsive movements that it wants to make. And as soon as I undressed and was under the warm water, my body started to shake. Shake, 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 shake. And I knew this is what it needed to do, so I just let it. And then I started to purge, to throw up. And I could feel that I was throwing up this energy of that was not mine, like his taking, his lust, his violation. I was coming out of me, and I just was visualizing it going down the drain and getting out of me, getting out of my body. And then the next thing that started to happen was confusion of how this could happen, how a sports massage and acupuncture could turn into my genitals being touched. And I've had so many clients who blame themselves and carry the burden of things that have happened to them in their past. And there's always been this part of me that's like, how can they blame themselves? Like, of course that's not your fault. But then it was having this experience of my mind saying, well, it must be how could this have happened? It must be your fault. Because you're so sexually liberated. Maybe it's because of that. Or, yeah, what was I wearing? What was I doing? What was I saying? Trying to find a reason for why this happened and making that reason me, making it me. And there was one part of my mind who was watching this happening going, no, this is not your fault. Like, this is not, we know that this is not true. But this other part who was so scared and so hurt and had her boundary crossed was like, well, I need to find a reason for this to make sense. And the only thing that I could land on was me, and that it was my fault. There's something you want to say about that?
Yeah, I remember you calling me and going through exactly this topic of like, oh, but you know, I had this thought or maybe this, and it was painful to see you finding, you know, being in this process of, because you're speaking about saying these things, but the emotion that comes with it is this deep, deep shame. Because if it's me, it's also like, what does that say about me? Am I wrong? Am I lost? You know, all these things. It's so confusing because there's so much pain, and then there's almost like this. It's kind of a fucked up experience of like, oh, maybe I wanted it, or maybe and that's like torture in the brain. Yeah.
Felt like torture in the brain, and as well as Laura, my colleague, who's in this work and trauma-informed, I reached out to my psychotherapist. I have a psychotherapist, and he got straight on the phone with me. And he said, Chloe, you're in shock, and your mind is trying to make sense of something that it can't make sense of right now. And so is it okay to just allow the thoughts to like come and go, and don't track them, I'm not trying to, I love psychology in the mind, and I was trying to like make it make sense and make an answer, and I had to surrender. I can't make this make sense right now. But what I can do is I can get to a safe place, and I'm not a city person, so what I knew was I needed to get out of the city. And I will continue to say how blessed I was in a shit situation, but I was on my way to a community that I have lived in Sweden, Ängsbacka, which is a community that I already have a relationship with, where I feel safe and held. And on the way there, I was on the phone to multiple people, and they were supporting me as I felt my body continue to go through like, I'm okay, I'm going to a safe place, to like freezing, it's feeling scared to be around strangers. And I knew that my body was in a fight and flight response, and I just needed to not be traveling and be in this safe environment, safer. And when I got there, the mind was still, playing gymnastics, and I knew that everyone in this place is good. They're good people, and they're all well-intending. But this part of me that was so hypervigilant and scared was like, I can't trust anyone. No one is safe.
I also remember you saying that you felt a lot of insecurity around people, which is really not your usual character. It was like, oh, I'm in this community and I find it really hard to connect with people. I don't even think almost like they like me. Like there was this idea that they're there and you're here and they don't even want you, which is so out of character. And it was like a real big sign of when it happened, how it affected your self-worth in that moment, and how difficult it was to reach out for connection from that place.
Yeah, and I remember, like, I know that it's always been my process is to reach out for help. There's a lot of people hold in and don't even dare to let themselves receive help. And almost everyone I met, I told them I was sexually assaulted. Like, I just said this. And it was such an interesting experience to see how ill-equipped people are to hold that information. It's big information to receive that someone's just been sexually assaulted. But I could feel like in people that I told that they, especially the men, they felt such sadness and for me, but I could also feel like their guilt that a man has done this, and I don't want to add to the pain that you must now be feeling towards men, or something like this.
Yeah. And I remember, because we from a somatic background, we know that if fear comes up regarding men, and there is a man who holds space, meaning he stays there, he's in connection with us, he understands the emotional process, there can be so much healing can happen. So even, for example, a really big piece is when anger would come up in a moment. You're like, how dare he touch me? And another man would stand in and like hold that space. There's like, that's breakthrough moments. And I remember us talking about, wow, you're in the place where men had the capacity or would actually be able, but at the same time your experience was that it was this kind of really loving but also very clumsy attempt of like, how can I, is it okay if I,
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess for me it was just a reminder of like how much as humans we want to help each other and how much men want to help. And then at the same time what you're saying, like not being equipped at all to do a very basic thing, which is just like, okay, I'm not going anywhere.
But then I did meet a man, and he typically, when I'm a very spiritual person, he looked just like the man who had assaulted me. It was late 50s, white-haired Swedish man, and he was the therapist on site. And one of the female friends recommended that I have a session with him. So I trusted her recommendation. And we went into the therapy room, which was an enclosed space. And I already felt my heart starting to race of like being in an enclosed space again for the first time with a man. And I have, for the last years, worked on my relationship with men. I've had a fatherhood wound that has already all my life like separated me from being able to have a closer bond with men. And I've worked on this so much, and I was like, no, am I taking all these steps backwards? And so in that moment I said to the man, you actually look a lot like the person who just assaulted me, and I'm feeling scared. And he said, okay, where should I sit in the room that will make you feel the most safe? And I asked him to sit on the other side of the room. So he moved on to the other side of the room and asked if it felt better now, and it did. My body just like took an exhale. And then he told me, the door is not locked. You can leave at any time. You don't have to tell me why or when you're going. You just go. And in that moment, I knew that what the massage therapist had done to me was wrong. Like, then I just was like, oh, this is what is right. This is how I get to be treated, with safety, with consent, with putting my needs and checking in on how I'm going. And none of that happened. A massage is a very confusing place to be assaulted, which is a whole nother story, because it's, I don't know if I want to go into that right now. But there's,
Like you can let that hang there.
Yeah. And so this was this instant moment of, I knew that my relationship with men was not going to be taken backwards, because I was in this place where, this man, he could hold space for me. Turns out he is an ex-policeman and works with women who have been sexually assaulted, and he was able to assure me black and blue that what had happened was wrong, and to advise me on how to make my police report, which I was beginning to feel ready to make.
I think one thing that you kept saying after integrating this more and more and like kind of moving through this healing process is the difference of doing a lot of work in somatics and trauma healing and looking at, somatic ways to do parts work, sexual liberation, playfulness, all of these pieces, sensuality work, and then having the experience versus in our line of work, the vast majority of women are having the assault and then they're so desperate because of all the symptoms they receive, like the low self-worth that you were saying, the closing off, the not being able to trust anyone, the self-blame, like the list goes, not being able to sleep at night to, this is just almost the mild parts of what can happen. Like obviously goes much further. But like on that search for healing, then doing it almost like that's usually how it happens, and for you it kind of happened backwards.
It happened backwards.
Yeah.
It happened backwards.
Yeah.
That I had in a whole program and library of inner resources that I've already been building for years to know my body, to trust my body, to support my body. That like the track back to healing was just so much faster, because I was able to listen to the body and move and dance and scream and go into nature, because I know nature is my ally and my support, and not have to like figure out these tools and trust that maybe they will work eventually. After some time, I was like, I know that this works and this supports me, and it was like hour by hour I was coming back to myself. And I remember the next part was I'm in Europe at the moment. The majority of my best friends are in Australia. Is that I wanted my people to know what had happened. I wanted them to know. So I made a video and sent a group message to my friends in Australia about what had happened to me. And this was such a touching moment, because it's taking up space here, like daring to say to people who have busy lives and their own things that are going on, like something's happened to me and I'm not great right now, and I might need support. And I had my friends telling me that they changed the setting in their phone so that even if I would call in Australia's middle of the night, that I would be able to call through. I had friends send me money for therapy sessions, and I had friends telling me, I get it, I've been there too. I've had assaults too. Friends who I never knew have experienced sexual assault. Best friends who I speak to and spend time with weekly, telling me suddenly about assault stories that I've never heard. And this was so heartbreaking, because I would say that my friends are pretty fucking liberated, conscious, entrepreneurial, business lady powerhouses and they have their stories, their unspoken stories. And I know when the Me Too movement happened, it was like this online global collective of like, let's wake up to this. But right here at home in my own friendship group, there suddenly were all these untold stories. And it just made me see, like, it's not just about the people you follow online, like what's happening right here at home with your sisters, with also brothers or beings of any gender. Like, what have we been through that we haven't shared? What grief is being, and fear and trauma is just being held inside alone. And that's why I wanted to share this, because it's so wrong. I can't imagine having done this alone, like from my therapist to my friends in Australia to anchored friends at home to an entire community. Within a month, I'm able to feel my body's mine, like my body's fucking mine. And I'm in the process with police still to, make sure that this person isn't able to do that again to someone else. But it's more than justice. It's how do you get to live your daily life after something like this happens? It takes resources, like financial resources, to pay for sessions, and courage to speak up, and let alone if you want to have a great sex life and it's been, stolen in a way from you. Yeah, it's a conversation that's uncomfortable and that people don't know how to respond to, and I want us to find ways to speak.
Yeah, this is really like the step one to bring this to the light so that we can be there for each other. And also, I love how you were sharing your healing process, because the healing process is very similar for, in the steps that are happening. And at the same time, there is this piece of when the trust already has broken, it's such interesting piece to find the right modality and to lean into what can potentially bring you out of that again. And I think for both of us, you obviously freshly experienced this, just like the deep reverence and like just the remembrance of what big achievement and what big peace it is that women are carrying that didn't have any of these tools beforehand, and they're having the experience, and from this piece of like real descent, you know, going back up and trusting random ladies like you and me to be like, oh yeah, let's do some trauma healing, right? And it's like, yeah, I just have so much reverence and respect for every woman who has been with this pain, like processed and held themselves in the pain, and also like reached back to the light saying, no, I know there is more possible. Like, I do not let this impact me forever. I'm going to be even more fucking awesome than before.
Oh, you're so fucking courageous and brave. Like, so courageous and brave.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who've done it, and those of you who haven't. Those of you who are still sitting with your story and your experience by yourself. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to. It wasn't your fault. It's not your fault. You deserve to feel that your body is yours. You deserve to feel pleasure and aliveness and joy in your body.
Yeah. And you get to give all of the emotions that are not yours back to the person who actually should feel all that shame.
Yeah, and I just want to like name it. I'm still working with my experience. I'm no longer in a state of freeze and shock. I was speaking to my psychotherapist friend, and we were talking about that there is actually a possibility of post-traumatic growth, and I do feel that because of how I've been able to hold myself instead of the way that post-trauma can be, I'm actually feeling able to grow, but that doesn't mean that there are little parts of me who are still like clenching up a little bit the first time I'm getting a massage again, or, you know, when I have to call the police, that's bringing up things in me. Just not to be some perfect person who's totally fixed everything. Like, yeah, there are parts I am still holding and tending to, but my spine is strong, and I know that I've got myself and I've got my team, because self-love is not about doing it alone. It's about like calling in the people and the allies and guides and land and all the supports that you can, all the resources that you can, like call it fucking in. Call it in. This is my sharing, and I hope that it is a permission slip for you to, if you have your own story, to find a way to share it with someone that feels safe and right, to trust that healing can happen and growth from your experience. And if you haven't had a personal experience, but you know you are someone who makes love with someone who might have, like, check in with them, ask them check in with what makes them feel most safe sexually or in touch in your friendship group. Like, maybe someday have a little sharing, like, hey, does anyone have any stories that are untold that really want to be? Like, let's learn to be better supports for each other, because yes, it's awkward and uncomfortable, but we need to learn to step up for each other, and that's everyone, not just sisters, brothers, and people of all genders. We can all support each other more when we speak the truth.